Hello everybody and welcome to another Transformers knockoff review. In today's video I'm taking a look at the third offering from NBK. This is part of their KO version of Generation Toys Bulldozer, which in turn is the third party equivalent of Bonecrusher. I actually like the name Bulldozer, I really do. This is pretty much exactly what we've got with the last two releases from NBK. It is a slightly simplified version, although in my personal opinion these have continued to get better and better, and they are pushing these out as quickly as they can, because I believe it's Zhujin, I think it is, it's JJ, the Chinese manufacturer. They are releasing their version of this mold and they're releasing it in yellow. So we're going to end up getting a Generation 2 version of Gravity Builder. And again, that should be done to a low cost, slightly simplified style, and should look the mutts nuts on display. Now, I don't have the original Generation Toys version anymore, unfortunately needs must, and I needed to sell some figures to put food on the table, so I wanted to keep hold of it until we completed this line, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. It does roll quite nicely, it holds together quite nicely, and as you can see the colouring is somewhat different to the original. We get a lot more purple on this, and we also get this translucent orange on the front and on the cab. Now, much like the other arm, one thing I do like about the Generation Toy figures and their KO equivalent is we actually get the limbs along with the figure. For example, if you take the Zeta Toys products, they haven't released the hands etc to go with their Bruticus yet. That's all likely to come with Onslaught, whereas the Generation Toys figures, they released their arms and fists along with the corresponding figure, which is always good in my opinion. We can just bring this hook piece section out, slide this in, twist that around, and then we can have the kind of tow truck section on the back. We do get a gun with him, pretty much the same as we got with the original, albeit it does look somewhat more matte, and this grey is slightly different. I believe they were painted silver, weren't they? And we do get some sprue marks on here as well, which is unfortunate. Now, I got this from Sir Toys, so I don't have the original packaging. They ship everything out in baggies to keep the costs down on shipping, but I do still get the instruction manual, and we get kind of a 3D render there of him chugging along in the desert, and there he is with his gun. Now, although they did change the colour scheme, it still definitely looks fantastic alongside his Comrade-at-Arms. The purple and the kind of almost kind of a luminous green that they've used, that's definitely very in keeping with the rest of these figures, and it's good to see that they've kept this kind of orange very uniform throughout the figures as well. Now, in my opinion, these aren't really designed to go with your Masterpiece figures. I believe they're designed to go with the Generation figures, hence the name Generation Toys. They just don't really have the height and kind of stylization that we associate with Masterpiece. These are exactly the same scale as the Generation Toys figures. If you're looking for a Masterpiece kind of size Devastator, then you want to look towards the up and coming Fans Toys release in something like 2050, or you can look towards the Toy World release of their Constructor. And for those of you that like to have your weapons stored in your vehicle mode, we do still have the ability to store the gun. Pegs in very tightly underneath there using that hole, and the gun itself just folds over and then retabs back in. Right, now to get Bulldozer transformed up, you want to just untab these pieces from the side of the scoop and then fold these back over. If you still have the trailer hitch section on, disengage this and open up this section like this. Bring the scoops up to the top and then opening up the front of the cab, we can bring these tabs round. We won't be able to tab them in just yet because we need to still rotate the waist. Unpeg the feet from this piece here and bring those down. And you need to slide this crotch piece along. Just be careful, so I've got some stress marks on the peg of mine. You just want to slide it along that runner and you tab these together in the middle, he says. Like that. Untab the sections from the legs, rotate the feet, untab the heel spurs, and again untab the tracks and rotate the feet around. Bring this torso piece back down, and that's just going to tab in and secure into place. You want to rotate this upper torso piece around, and now that it's squared off, we can then tab these arms into place and then bring them out to the side. Come to the arms, you want to flip this under tab up, spin the fists outwards, and there's a small tab here that's going to line up on that translucent section. Applying a little bit of pressure, you want to pop this off this tab and extend it around. Rotate the fist around. The arms are now in the correct positions. You can then rotate this piece back, bring this part of the scoop section upwards, and you see this tab here. That's going to rotate and locate into the back of that arm. We could now bring the scoop section off over the head and reveal the head sculpt. Now you can still attach the backpack in this mode. I am really not a fan of how that looks though. It makes him very back heavy. Just not a great fan of that. Now let's take a closer look. The head sculpt is very nice indeed. That's obviously props to the guys over at Generation Toys. I mean, they've done a nice job to simplify this. It's definitely the better of all three figures because it looks kind of the closest to the Generation Toys version, in my opinion. It's not without its faults. I have a nice little gap there in my leg. I could probably rectify that by tightening or loosening some of the screws, but that is how it's arrived. Again, it's all very tidy, and he's a very slimline figure. He's just fun. Articulation wise, he has a nice ball jointed head, so we can go up and down, left and right, and we can tilt to the side. The shoulders can move outwards, upwards. We have an upper bicep rotation, although it is hindered because I've tabbed this piece in. We do get a bend at the elbow, and as we bend the elbow, the piston is designed to go forwards and backwards along the shaft. We get a rotation on the wrist, although the fists are one solid lump. We get a nice little bit of waist rotation. We do kind of get an abdominal crunch. It's part of the transformation, but I do like to incorporate that when posing him in his robot mode. The legs can come forwards, backwards, not a great range there, out to the side, upper thigh rotation. Nice bend at the knee there. Again, this is where it is all coming apart. I love how this section disappears into that kneecap, and that's a really good selection of range. We get up and down on the toe, up and down, and we also get some pivoting there. Unfortunately, it is just the toe and the heel that pivot. This lump here is still static, but you know, with the pivoting on those heels and toes, that is just about enough to get him into a nice wide stance without him falling over. And here they are all together, the three of them all lined up nicely. Again, this lovely colour scheme does carry on throughout. Still not a fan of this big bold logo. Bulldozer's is just on the back of his cab, so that I'm kind of happy with, but these are very kind of prominent, aren't they? And I still think that he's a little bit too small. They modified the legs. They took a section out, which personally I think they kind of needed. But hey, I'm going to be displaying these as the Devastator, so it doesn't really bother me. But some of you may feel that the height isn't really as close to the G1 as people would like. And for those of you who do wish to incorporate these into your masterpiece collection, here they are alongside MP10, just to give you an idea of the scale. And to get him transformed up into his limb mode, we basically want to backtrack and transform him back into his Bulldozer form, which is relatively straightforward. It's just a matter of reversing those steps that we've done. The only thing I struggle with is getting all of the tabs to line up. It's not as clean as what Generation Toys did, and it's quite noticeable when you're trying to line things up. But that being said, I mean, it's not terrible. That's definitely the case. I was expecting it to feel worse than it is. They are definitely improving with these. It's something that I've noticed over the last couple of releases, and this one is definitely leaps and bounds ahead of the other two. So just push and tab those sections in, push and tab. We can then bring those around and tabbing those in together. You will also notice that this tab tends to pop off an abnormal amount. It's just this circular tab here. I don't think it's cut really that well, because it does tend to just keep popping out of that joint. You want to fold down the digger sections and join those together at the front. Untab this piece here, untab those crotch plates, and again slide those all the way back down on either side. Again, just making sure we don't apply too much pressure to these joints. Like I said, this is definitely showing signs of stress, so I don't really want to push that any further than what it needs to go. You can then close off the rest of the tracks on both sides, bring this around, tab that back in, and on both sides you want to rotate these legs up. You're just going to tab in on both sides. This piece is going to extend, and that's going to tab in to the front of the scoop. Make sure that these feet come underneath this time, as opposed to mounting them at the back. And you want to have this tab available here. Bring your fist in, rotate this outwards and around like this, bring this up, and then we can close this fist back off. And coming to the underside, you want to push this in, to thread that in, and then twisting this piece, it now locks that all into place. Come to the underside, and hopefully we'll be able to do this with just our fingers. Ah, that's a very stiff joint. Just bring it all the way out, like so. It's not as stiff as the Generation Toys version, but it is pretty darn stiff nonetheless, and it's just a matter of tidying all these up that I've just managed to untab. And there we go. There we have him in his limb mode. Now, making sure that we don't rotate this black piece, we now have the ability to move the elbow upwards and downwards. We do get the ability to move this out at the shoulder on that ratchet joint. These are completely compatible with the Generation Toys versions. Coming down to the wrist, we have up and down motion on the wrist. It's actually ball mounted, so we can pivot the fist inwards and outwards. We have a ball mounted thumb with an additional pin on the finger, and we have ball mounted fingers with a total of 3 points of articulation. We have pegs on the inside there awaiting his Devastator gun, and we have the ability to just move these missiles in and out on the forearms. So there we go. It's a nice figure. It is a cracking bargain for the price, basically because they haven't had to pay any designers to make this. They've just reverse engineered Generation Toys version and simplified it somewhat. But all in all, this is going to look like a very good Devastator, and it is perfect for those out there who possibly couldn't afford the original and want to customize a figure. I will always advise you to go out and buy the originals, because without those there won't even be the KO products. Personally, I want this painted up. I'm going to get a friend to paint it up once it's completely finished, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing that JJ orange stroke yellowy version for Generation 2 and see how they compare in build quality to these figures. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up, share, and of course subscribe. I've included a link in the description below where you can buy this at Toys. And until next time, from myself and Bulldozer, thanks for watching. Good